Hello and welcome to Vantage. I'm Alison Lagrange. Let's get started. All eyes are on New York today. The 80th UN General Assembly session has convened. It's among the most consequential in recent years. Just a short while ago, Donald Trump addressed the gathering. It was his first since returning to office. As expected, the focus was also on Gaza and the war. After nearly 2 years of fighting, global opinion has shifted. Israel's allies are lining up to recognize Palestine. Will this change anything on the ground? And how is Israel responding? Also on the show, India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar met with Marco Rubio yesterday. Will it de-escalate tensions amid the trade war? In the tech world, Nvidia is investing $100 billion in OpenAI. Back in India, the GST cut is delivering record car sales. And finally, the miracle of an Afghan boy who flew on a plane's landing gear. All of this and more lined up. But first, the headlines.
NATO warns Russia to stop airspace violations along its eastern flank after the alliance held urgent talks about a jet incursion over Estonia last week. That incident, which saw NATO scramble jets, came just over a week after the alliance shot down Russian drones over Poland. Poland will reopen its border with Belarus this week. The announcement was made by Prime Minister Donald Tusk. It comes 2 weeks after the border was sealed during Russian-led military exercises. Poland has also recently accused Belarus of encouraging undocumented migrants from outside Europe to cross the border. Chinese President Xi Jinping begins a rare visit to the northwest region of Xinjiang, home to numerous ethnic groups including Turkic-speaking Uyghurs. Xinjiang has long been plagued by attacks that have left many civilians dead. Beijing has denied accusations that it has targeted Uyghurs who are Muslims. French President Emmanuel Macron calls his US counterpart Donald Trump from the streets of New York after his entourage was stopped from crossing a route being kept clear for Trump's motorcade. Macron and Trump are in New York for the United Nations General Assembly.
I'm sorry, President, I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's in frozen right now.
How are you? Guess what? I'm waiting the street because everything is frozen for you.
Mohanlal receives the Dadasaheb Phalke Award, the highest recognition in Indian cinema, at the 71st National Film Award ceremony held in New Delhi. Shah Rukh Khan also received his first National Film Award. He shared the Best Actor award with Vikrant Massey, while Rani Mukherjee won the Best Actress award.
The Gaza war is nearing 2 years. Tens of thousands have been killed by Israel. The entire strip is in a state of ruin. But can a breakthrough emerge from the smoldering debris? Well, there are indications of it. We are seeing a major push for the two-state solution, arguably the biggest in recent years. And it's not coming from Palestine's Arab allies. It's coming from Israel's own partners. Look at what happened yesterday. France and Saudi Arabia co-chaired a summit at the United Nations. A special summit focused on Palestine. Dozens of leaders attended this gathering. Many of them also officially recognized the state of Palestine. This includes multiple Israeli allies like France, Canada, and Portugal.
The time has come. This is why, faithful to my country's historic commitment in the Middle East to peace between the Israeli and Palestinian peoples, I declare that France today recognizes the state of Palestine.
La France reconnaît aujourd'hui l'État de Palestine.
And it is now the avowed policy of the current Israeli government that there will be, and I quote, no Palestinian state. In this context, Canada recognizes the state of Palestine.
The summit was boycotted by Israel and the US. Both countries have opposed unilateral recognition. Palestine also wasn't in the room. Their officials were denied visas by the US. But Palestinian President Abbas spoke via a video link. He thanked Western countries for the recognition. He also promised them reforms, including elections after the war.
We underline our commitment to organize presidential and parliamentary elections after the end of the war, and within 1 year, we will draft an interim constitution within 3 months to ensure the transfer of power from the authority to state.
It's a big moment for Palestine. Their flag was unfurled in both Paris and London. Take a look. These moves raise three main questions. How is Israel responding? What does recognition mean? And what next? First, the basics. The two-state solution is a proposed arrangement in West Asia. One state for Israel, one state for Palestine. Now that's the proposal in a nutshell. Of course, Israel already exists as a state, but Palestine is mostly occupied territory. It is not a sovereign country yet. Nonetheless, many countries have already recognized them, more than 150 in total. India, Russia, China, all of them recognize Palestine. But Western countries did not. They were closer to Israel and the US. Therefore, they opposed unilateral recognition of Palestine. Until this week. The brutality of Israel's war has changed public opinion. These countries are disappointed with Israel, so they want to make their opposition felt, hence the decision to recognize Palestine. Now to our three questions. How is Israel reacting? As expected, they are lashing out. Prime Minister Netanyahu has accused these countries of rewarding Hamas.
I have a clear message for those leaders who recognize a Palestinian state after the terrible massacre of October 7th. You are giving a huge price to terrorism.
He is defying on the ground too. Netanyahu is going ahead with a new West Bank plan. Basically, he is annexing more Palestinian land into Israel. Which brings us to question number 2. What does this recognition change? On the ground, nothing. Israel's war continues in Gaza. Their military is pushing on with plans to occupy Gaza City. Even among people, there is no hope.
It's nothing. The recognition of countries of a Palestinian state is for nothing. Our hope is for God to stop the war, and that's it.
I think all of this is worthless, because no one sees us from the inside out, and no one sees us from the outside in. No one sees us except the Lord of the worlds.
And what does it change politically? Well, give it to Palestine full UN membership. Will it give Palestine a UN membership? The answer to this is no. A full UN membership requires approval from the Security Council, and that the US will never permit. Now, they will veto any proposal for Palestine's membership. Having said that, don't underestimate the symbolism of this move. It deepens Israel's isolation in the world. Almost all of their allies now recognize Palestine. Only the US is left standing. That's not an ideal position for any country. It tells you how much the global opinion has shifted. Finally, question number 3, what happens next? Will other European countries follow? Well, that's a bit complicated. In Italy, the public is divided. Yesterday, pro-Palestine protests swept through the country. There were violent clashes too. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni isn't recognizing Palestine. She says it would be counterproductive. Same with Germany. Berlin says recognition isn't up for debate.
For the German government, the recognition of Palestinian statehood is not currently up for debate. We continue to see such recognition as one of the last steps, not one of the first, on the path to a two-state solution.
But these countries are also criticizing Israel. They want Netanyahu to end the war. If the fighting continues, global sentiment will shift even more. As they say, wars are not just judged on military outcomes, they are judged on political outcomes. After nearly 2 years of fighting, Israel is largely isolated. Its own allies are recognizing Palestine, and that certainly doesn't count as a win. Every September, the United Nations General Assembly turns Manhattan into a diplomatic circus. Motorcades snarl midtown traffic, interpreters juggle a dozen languages, leaders line up to deliver their big speeches on the world's most famous stage. It's messy and chaotic, but it's also the essence of the UN. It is the one place where every leader, at least in theory, gets a voice. Except this year, one leader is missing. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. He was denied a visa by the United States. Abbas is one of the 80 Palestinian officials whose visas were revoked. The US State Department cites national security concerns, but this is very unusual. For decades, the annual UNGA meet has been sacrosanct. Even bitter enemies spoke in the room. They did trade barbs, but that's the whole point. The UN is meant to be a neutral platform. There's even a treaty for this, the UN Headquarters Agreement, which obliges the UN. It obliges the United States as host country to let foreign leaders in, regardless of whether Washington likes them or not. So denying Abbas the visa is very unusual. It's bending the very rules of the UN. Now, to salvage the moment, the UN voted overwhelmingly to let Abbas speak via video. 145 votes were in favor to let him speak on a call. It was a workaround, but it is quite the humiliating one. And this is not the first time this has happened to a Palestinian president. Back in 1988, the US denied a visa to Yasser Arafat. At the time, it was seen as a Cold War-era provocation. Decades later, Washington is doing the same. And it's not just the UNGA. Trump now wants to sanction the ICC, the International Criminal Court, the very court probing alleged Israeli war crimes. The US has already blacklisted individual prosecutors and judges, but targeting the court itself would mark a major escalation. The ICC was born in 2002. It was to hold leaders and institutions accountable for crimes like genocide and war crimes. Not every country signed up. The US famously stayed out. But the court remains one of the few global mechanisms for justice when states fail. If all of this feels familiar, it's because it is. Trump's playbook on a global institution has always been systematic dismissal. He walked out of the Paris Climate Accord. He defunded the World Health Organization. The US quit the UN Human Rights Council. He even threatened to pull out of NATO in his first term. Now the UN and the ICC are in the firing line. And that's dangerous, because these institutions of the UN, the ICC, the very system of multilateral diplomacy exist because America built them after World War II. Washington wanted a world governed by rules. By undermining them now, the US is tearing down its own legacy. And remember, the UN is only as strong as its members' respect for the rules. If the host country starts bending them, what message does that send? The visa ban on Mahmoud Abbas wasn't just about Palestine. The looming sanctions on the ICC aren't just about Israel. Together, they signal something bigger. A superpower questioning whether it still wants to play by the very rules it wrote. And the rest of the world? It's beginning to wonder if the referee has walked off the field. The United Nations General Assembly is now open. Leaders from across the world are gathering in New York. More than 150 heads of state and government will address the UN. By tradition, Brazil speaks first. The United States follows. And this year, that means Donald Trump. It is his first UNGA speech since returning to the presidency, and it comes at a moment of global turbulence. There is a war in Ukraine. There is bloodshed in Gaza, and rivalries are shaping up across the world and sharpening. These speeches will set the tone for the week, and all eyes are on what the world's leaders choose to say. Our next report has more.
New York is under heightened security. The United Nations General Assembly has opened its annual debate. Inside the hall, leaders face the world's most pressing crises: wars in Gaza and Ukraine, tensions in the Caribbean, and global anxiety over migration, climate change, and artificial intelligence. For decades, this podium has been where nations announce their vision. This year, the voices are sharper, the divisions deeper. By tradition, Brazil always opens the debate. President Lula da Silva targeted authoritarianism and anti-democratic forces around the world. His words set a combative tone for the day. Then came U.S. President Donald Trump, back at the UN for the first time in his second term, a president once laughed at in this hall. Now returning to confront the very institution he says has failed. Trump opened with a remark that his teleprompter was not working, and moved quickly to list what he called his achievements since January.
And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. 1 year ago, our country was in deep trouble, but today, just 8 months into my administration, we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, and there is no other country even close. America is blessed with the strongest economy, the strongest borders, the strongest military, the strongest friendships, and the strongest spirit of any nation on the face of the earth.
Trump declared that America is now the most respected nation in the world. A claim, he said, that would not have been possible a year ago. From there, Trump turned to foreign conflicts, and then turned his attention to the United Nations.
It's too bad that I had to do these things instead of the United Nations doing them. And sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help in any of them. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal.
He once again claimed he should receive the Nobel Peace Prize, and pointed to new U.S. trade deals as proof of American strength. On Gaza, Trump repeated his demand for the release of all hostages and warned that recognizing a Palestinian state would reward Hamas.
We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities.
Turning to Ukraine, he said it should have been the easiest war to end.
Stopping the killing in Ukraine. I thought that would be, of the 7 wars that I stopped, I thought that would be the easiest because of my relationship with President Putin, which had always been a good one. I thought that was going to be the easiest one, but this war would never have started if I were president. This was a war that should have never happened. China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy.
In the end, Trump in his speech claimed new strength for America. He cast doubt on the United Nations, and he put fresh pressure on Europe and Russia over Ukraine. His appearance also revived memories of his past speeches. In 2018, when he claimed his administration had achieved more than almost any in U.S. history, delegates laughed. This time, there was no laughter. Instead, there was a sharp focus on what his second term means for the world.
And staying on with the UNGA, a key meeting happened on the sidelines yesterday. India's Foreign Minister, Jaishankar, met with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And what a time to meet, right in the middle of tariff and visa tensions. It was also the highest level of engagement since ties broke down, since Trump imposed his 50% tariffs. So, how did things go? Rubio said India is of critical importance to America. He also appreciated India's continued engagement with Washington, whether it's on trade, defense, or energy. Finally, he also spoke about the Indo-Pacific. Rubio said that India and the US would promote a free and open Indo-Pacific. And now we come to Jaishankar. He said the talks covered issues of current concern, clearly a reference to bilateral challenges like the visas and tariffs. Jaishankar also highlighted the importance of sustained engagement, basically to continue having such talks. Now, the timing of this meeting is very important. Last Friday, President Donald Trump announced his H-1B visa rule. He hiked the visa fee to $100,000. Why? Because he says the H-1B has been misused, that foreign workers are taking away American jobs. His solution? To impose a steep fee on the H-1B. It's a fresh chapter in India-US tensions. Until last week, the trade issues were limited to goods, basically merchandise exports. But now it's been expanded to services as well. It is in this backdrop that Jaishankar met with Rubio. Plus, this wasn't the only meeting. India's Commerce Minister is also in New York, and yesterday he met with Trump's trade representative. It was their third meeting this year. They are hoping to push on for a trade deal. The question is, will these talks lead to a reset? What Rubio said on India's engagement is true. Just look at the H-1B fiasco. After it was announced, India went into overdrive. Now, reports say the Foreign Ministry worked over the weekend. They used channels in the Indian and US capital, and they secured some relief. At first, the $100,000 fee was supposed to be annual. Trump officials said so repeatedly.
Well, they're $100,000 per year. That's the policy here, $100,000 a year for H-1B visas, and all of the big companies are on board, renewals, first times, The company needs to decide, is the person valuable enough to have $100,000 a year payment to the government? The whole idea, it's annual, and it's for total, it can be a total of 6 years. So $100,000 a year.
But on Saturday, the White House issued a clarification. It said the fee was not annual. It would be one time. Another relief could be on the cards, and some reports say that doctors and medical professionals could be exempt from the fee. Again, this has not been confirmed. But the White House order does hint at some exceptions. Let me quote. The restriction shall not apply to any individual alien if the Secretary of Homeland Security determines that the hiring of such aliens is in the national interest and does not pose a threat to the security or welfare of the United States. So it's pretty open-ended. The only condition is national interest. If the job is in America's national interest, then no visa fee. But coming back to yesterday's talks, will they lead to a reset? Well, Rubio has always supported India. He is one of the few bona fide foreign policy experts in Trump's cabinet. He has also long advocated for closer ties with India. Even amid the recent chaos, he was silent. He was measured in his criticism of India. It represents the new reality that New Delhi faces in Washington. A cooperative State Department, a cooperative Pentagon, but a shaky White House. Amid this confusion, India's strategy appears to be clear. Don't concede on the red lines. Keep engaging where possible. And now on to NVIDIA. It is putting up to $100 billion into OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT. It's a huge number, even for Silicon Valley. The deal is framed as a strategic partnership. NVIDIA will supply chips, OpenAI will build data centers. Together, they want to push AI to the next level. But the announcement raises as many questions as it has answers. So here are the big ones. First, what exactly is the deal? NVIDIA is both investing cash and supplying its chips. OpenAI gets the infrastructure it needs. NVIDIA gets closer to its biggest customer. But it won't get voting rights. So it is essentially influence, not control. 2. Where does the rest of the money come from? 1 gigawatt of AI data center capacity costs about $50 billion. NVIDIA is covering $10 billion per gigawatt. Now that leaves a gap of $40 billion each time. Multiply that by 10 gigawatts and OpenAI still needs hundreds of billions. From whom? Now that is still unclear. 3. What does this mean for OpenAI's messy corporate structure? OpenAI is still technically a non-profit, an odd structure for a company valued at $500 billion. To attract investors like NVIDIA, OpenAI has been negotiating a shift into a public benefit corporation. Now, technically, it means a profit-making company, but with a mission that is baked into its charter. So, is NVIDIA investing in today's non-profit or tomorrow's for-profit? Either way, this deal forces the structure question to the front of the line. And it comes at a difficult time. NVIDIA is in the middle of a tug of war between Washington and Beijing. The US government has banned NVIDIA from selling its best AI chips to China. China has accused NVIDIA of breaking anti-monopoly laws. It has even ordered its tech giants to stop buying NVIDIA chips. Meanwhile, NVIDIA agreed to hand over 15% of Chinese revenues to Washington in exchange for export licenses. In this climate, doubling down on OpenAI looks like a hedge. NVIDIA is betting on America, but it also risks making itself the ultimate target in the US-China tech rivalry. Chip makers everywhere saw their stocks jump after Nvidia's announcement. The likes of TSMC, SK Hynix, Samsung, Tokyo Electron, because investors love one story above all, and that is the story of growth. But growth here depends on two fragile things: demand for AI that justifies trillions in spending, also a continued supply of the rare hardware that is needed to fuel it. If either falters, the bubble pops. If both hold, Nvidia's $100 billion could look like the smartest bet of the decade. So, is this inflating the AI bubble? On paper, yes. OpenAI is valued at $500 billion today. Nvidia's $10 billion first tranche is pegged at that number. But by the time the next chunk comes, will OpenAI still be worth $500 billion or $1 trillion? The math starts to look eerily like dot-com era logic. Valuations rising faster than revenues, capital needs ballooning, and everyone assuming infinite growth. The difference? This time, the product isn't eyeballs on websites. It's compute power and AI infrastructure, which brings us to the main question. Is NVIDIA pouring fuel on an AI bubble, or are we watching the birth of a new industrial revolution? Maybe both. The dot-com crash was brutal, but it left behind the rails of the modern internet, and that's the parallel to watch. NVIDIA and OpenAI may be stumbling into the same story. The risks are enormous, but so are the rewards. Whether this ends in a crash or a transformation, one thing is certain. The world is now all in on AI, and NVIDIA just put the biggest chip on the table. What happens when you combine a festival with tax cuts? In simple words, a shopping spree. That's what's happening in India. Yesterday marked the first day of the Navratri festival. It also coincided with the new GST rates. Taxes have been cut across the board on items. Nowhere was it more visible than cars. There is always a rush to buy vehicles around this time, but the lower GST made it even better. The result? A massive buying spree. Top sellers like Maruti sold 30,000 cars on Monday alone. Our next report tells you more.
Indians love a Maruti car, it's no secret. But even that love doesn't explain the frenzy on Monday. Maruti recorded its best sales day in 3 decades. They received 80,000 inquiries and delivered 25,000 cars. But wait, it wasn't just Maruti. Over at Tata Motors, same story. They received 25,000 inquiries and 10,000 deliveries. And Hyundai, also on a roll with 11,000 orders on Monday. Makes you wonder, what was so special? It was a double boost for India's auto market yesterday. For starters, it marked the beginning of a major Hindu festival, Navaratri. But more importantly, it was the first day of the new GST regime. GST, as you know, is the goods and services tax. It is the uniform indirect tax levied on items sold in India. Back in August, the government announced reforms to this tax system. Among the beneficiaries was the auto sector. Before Monday, smaller cars attracted 28% tax. These are cars under 4 meters in length, with relatively smaller engines. Under 1200 cc for petrol and 1500 cc for diesel. But starting yesterday, the tax was slashed to 18%. The result was a shopping frenzy. Car makers cashed in on this tax cut. They added their own festival discounts to boost sales. Look at the new prices this season. Maruti's Espresso has become cheaper by 1.3 lakh rupees. The Celerio by around 94,000 rupees. And the Baleno by 86,000. Hyundai too has slashed their prices. The Creta has become cheaper by 72,000 rupees, and the Venue by 1.24 lakhs. Indian carmaker Tata has also announced new prices. Their Tiago hatchback will now cost 1.2 lakh less. Such lower prices have brought in more customers. But will this trend continue? Well, Monday marked the release of weeks-long pin-up demand. Interested customers probably delayed their purchase after hearing about the GST cut. Those customers thronged the showrooms yesterday, but it's unclear if this momentum will continue. Industry experts know exactly what to look for. Not SUV or luxury car purchases, they are looking at the entry-level segment. This is where purchasing power is visible, where a family transitions from bikes to cars. We're talking about vehicles like Alto and Espresso. Strong entry-level sales indicate strong grassroots demand. Back in 2016, almost 1 million such cars were sold in India. By the last fiscal year, it had fallen to just 25,000 units. Yes, the customer's taste has changed, but that still doesn't explain a 97% drop in sales. And that's the key indicator to watch out for. India needs more families to join the four-wheeler club. From Monday's data, that seems to be happening. Maruti officials say small cars are receiving the highest inquiries. If those convert to sales, it's mission accomplished with the GST cuts.
For years, one medicine has sat quietly in almost every home. Small, white in color, and cheap. In America, it's called Tylenol. Its generic name is acetaminophen. Elsewhere, it's known as paracetamol. It is the world's most common pain reliever. It treats fever and reduces pain, and it has been recommended for decades. Doctors call it the safest option in pregnancy. So safe that it is said that half of all expectant mothers take it. But yesterday, this ordinary pill moved from the medical world to the political stage. At the White House, US President Donald Trump took aim at it. He stood beside his health secretary. His name is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Trump issued a warning to millions of women. Don't take Tylenol. Listen in.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good.
Well, Donald Trump did not stop there. The US president even said that women should avoid Tylenol during their entire pregnancy. Take a look.
Because I think you shouldn't take it, and you shouldn't take it during the entire pregnancy. They may tell you that toward the end of the pregnancy, you shouldn't take it during the entire, and you shouldn't give the child the Tylenol every time he's born and he goes and has a shot. You shouldn't give a Tylenol to that child.
But why did Trump say this? It's because of the growing diagnoses of autism in the United States. Trump claimed that rates have surged by more than 400% since the year 2000, and official data shows a rise. The U.S. Center for Disease Control says that 1 in 31 children aged 8 years old has been identified with autism. In 2020, the number was 1 in 36. But experts say that this does not mean autism is suddenly exploding. The definition of autism has changed. Doctors are screening more children, and parents are more aware of the signs. This is why more children are being diagnosed today. But the president is drawing his own conclusions. He linked the rise in autism to Tylenol, and he warned that giving it to babies after vaccinations was also bad. The FDA, that's the Food and Drug Administration, it is the agency that regulates medicines in the United States. It decides what is safe and what warnings should appear on drug labels. After Trump's announcement, the FDA said it would review the labels on Tylenol. But the FDA made one point clear. a direct link between Tylenol and autism has not been proven. So where does that leave us? What does the science actually show? Some studies have suggested a possible association. Earlier this year, a review of 46 studies did find a link between Tylenol use and autism or ADHD, but the authors warned association is not proof. They said that more research is needed. By contrast, a massive study in Sweden tracked 2.5 million children. It compared siblings and looked at exposure during pregnancy. The result? No sign of a direct link. They said family factors, not the drug, may explain earlier results. So the picture is mixed. Some studies see a possible link and others show no connection at all. And that is why the debate continues. But science is only one part of the story. The other part is trust. Because when a president speaks, his words carry weight. And that is why the medical community responded with alarm. They warned that scare messages could harm expectant mothers, because the real risk is not the medicine. It is what happens if women stop taking it when they need to. Untreated fever can be dangerous in pregnancy. It can lead to miscarriage, preterm birth, and birth defects. So doctors and experts repeat their guidance. Tylenol is still the safest option.
I would say we have strong evidence that acetaminophen is not causing autism. It's certainly not the cause of autism. And so to make that sort of statement that nobody should take Tylenol takes away the individualized nature of how we practice medicine and how these medicines are prescribed for families, for the people that they're prescribed for, both during pregnancy and for children.
Meanwhile, Tylenol's maker, Kenvue, says the medicine is safe. It does not cause autism. Courtrooms have heard this argument too. Hundreds of lawsuits tried to link Tylenol to autism and ADHD. In 2024, a federal judge dismissed them. The judge ruled the science was not strong enough. An appeal is still pending. Experts say the bigger lesson is this: autism is complex. It does not have a single cause. Blaming one pill is not the answer. And when it comes to medicine, evidence must come before opinion, because the cost of getting it wrong is high. For parents, it means fear and confusion. For doctors, it means trust being undermined. And for expectant mothers, it means being left with fewer safe options. Curiosity can change lives. Sometimes it can even put them at risk. Tonight, we bring you a story from Kabul, a story that begins with a 13-year-old boy. He slipped past security. He followed passengers onto the tarmac, but he never entered the cabin. Instead, he hid inside the landing gear of a plane. That plane took off from Kabul and flew to Delhi. And against all odds, he survived the journey. The story is bizarre. It is rare, because wheel-well stowaways almost never live to tell the tale. It is deadly, and it raises serious questions about aviation security. Here's our report with more details.
Curiosity is a powerful thing. It makes us look into dark spaces. It makes us do impossible things. And sometimes it can take us inside the wheel of a jet. That's what happened in Kabul. A 13-year-old boy slipped into the airport. He trailed behind a group of passengers. He reached the tarmac, and instead of boarding the cabin, he crawled into the landing gear of a CAM Airjet. With him, only a small red speaker. On Sunday morning, the plane took off. Flight RQ 4401. Its route, Kabul to Delhi. For nearly 2 hours, the boy clung to life inside the wheel well. At around 10:20 a.m. local time, the jet landed in Delhi. And he was still alive. Airport staff spotted him wandering near the aircraft. Security was alerted. He was handed over to India's CISF. That's the Central Industrial Security Force, a paramilitary unit that guards airports and critical infrastructure. At Delhi Airport's Terminal 3, he was questioned. His answer was simple: curiosity. By afternoon, he was sent back to Kabul on the same plane. But the shock remained because the wheel well is no place for life. It is a compartment built for landing gear, not for humans. It is unheated. It is unpressurized. At high altitude, oxygen levels vanish. Temperatures drop below -40. The space is cramped, and the risk of falling out is real. Most stowaways never make it. They pass out from hypoxia. They freeze in the cold. Some are crushed by the landing gear itself. Survival is rare. Yet this boy lived, and he now joins a long, strange list of wheel well stowaways. In 1996, two brothers tried to do the same thing in Delhi. They climbed into the wheel bay of a British Airways jet. The flight was headed to London. One brother survived, the other froze to death. In 1999, two teenagers from Guinea hid on a plane to Brussels. They never made it out alive. Their frozen bodies were found on arrival. In their pockets was a letter, pleaded for help from Europe. In 2022, a Kenyan man was found alive in the wheel well of a cargo plane in Amsterdam. He had survived hours in the freezing sky. But in December 2024, a United Airlines flight landed in Hawaii. Inside the wheel well, a body was discovered. Cases like these are rare, but they reveal gaps in airport security. How do people slip through airport security? How do they reach a plane unnoticed? And how do a few survive conditions that kill most? After the Delhi incident, the CISF inspected the CAM Airjet. They found the boy's red speaker in the wheel well. The aircraft was declared safe. According to aviation records, more than 100 wheel well stowaway attempts have been documented since the late 1940s. Many ended in death. So for the Afghan boy, curiosity gave him a dangerous flight. From Kabul to Delhi, from wheel well to runway, and back to Kabul the same day. A bizarre journey, a rare survival, and a story that leaves aviation authorities asking hard questions.
And now let's talk about Ragasa, the super typhoon. It has barreled through northern Philippines, whipping up strong winds, heavy rains, and landslides. This is the strongest, most powerful storm on Earth this year, a Category 5 hurricane. It made landfall in the Philippines yesterday, packing maximum sustained winds of 185 kilometers per hour and gusts of up to 230 kilometers per hour. The typhoon has wreaked havoc on the tiny, heavily populated northern Philippine islands, killing at least 3 people, forcing more than 100,000 people to evacuate, leaving destruction in its wake, from uprooted trees to damaged homes and infrastructure, and prompting critical rescue operations. While the typhoon has slightly weakened today, schools and government offices in large parts of the country, including the capital of Manila, remain shut. But the worst is far from over. The storm is passing south of Taiwan, making its way to Hong Kong. The southern parts of mainland China are also bracing for widespread destruction. While Ragasa will not hit Taiwan directly, it is drenching the island's east coast with heavy rains.
Yesterday was very scary. It gives me goosebumps when I think about it. It was like the end of the world. That's all I can say. I thought the waves would hit us anytime, and we couldn't run away. It was so large it gives me the chills.
Since yesterday, more than 4,000 people have been evacuated. Many forest and nature trails have been closed. Some ferry services have been suspended. But Ragasa has overwhelmed preparation efforts. It is causing widespread destruction. An overflowing river has broken a bridge on the east coast and flooded surrounding areas. In Hong Kong, more than 700 flights have been grounded. Schools have been shut. There are sandbags and flood barriers on roads, and windows have been taped shut as the weather has deteriorated rapidly.
The airline asked us to check in our luggage only 50 minutes before the flight, as they are not sure if the flight will take off. The flight was canceled very early on. I actually changed the flights 2 to 3 times. I am just betting on luck.
I'm really afraid. I couldn't sleep all night, just sitting here and watching.
Ragasa is expected to make landfall in the early hours of Wednesday. Officials warn that this could be the most destructive typhoon in Hong Kong's recent history. So panic buying has set in. People have piled into supermarkets, stocking up on necessities in case the shops remain closed tomorrow. And Hong Kong is not alone here. Something similar is happening in China's Guangdong province. Authorities have advised residents to prepare for a catastrophic disaster. More than 400,000 residents have been evacuated, especially those living in flood-prone regions. Train service in Guangdong has been reduced today and will be completely suspended tomorrow, as the typhoon is expected to make landfall on Wednesday. So as Ragasa continues its ruthless march, authorities warn that the worst is yet to come. This colossal typhoon threatens to unleash unimaginable destruction, with heavy rainfall, floods and landslides that could shatter communities. Emergency crews are racing against time to prepare. Authorities continue to urge residents to take all necessary precautions. So as Ragasa roars toward Hong Kong and southern China, the region braces for more devastation. And for our last story tonight, let me ask you this. Have you heard about quadrobics? It is the new workout trend in town. No, it's not about working the quads or the group of muscles at the front of your thighs. It is about unleashing your inner animal. Quadrobics involves running and jumping on all fours, and it has amassed quite the fan following on social media. But what's the point? And what are some of the other bizarre workout trends? Here's a report.
When people say beast mode workout, they probably don't mean it literally. Well, unless they are talking about quadrobics. No, this is not about exercising your quads or the quadriceps femoris, which is the group of muscles at the front of your thighs. No, it's not about solving maths problems while you exercise. And no, it's not about exercising in sets of 4 either. But yes, it has everything to do with the number 4. Quadrobics is about exercising on all fours, like walking around on your hands and feet. Quadrobics practitioners are not part of a furry community. They just exercise with animal-like movements. Think running, jumping, flipping like a hyperactive dog that just discovered Red Bull. They say it's super physical and ultra exhausting, and that it improves coordination, balance, and strength. But whether that is true or not, this is not the only bizarre workout trend. Mermaiding is also part of this club, and yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. That is where people slip into colorful mermaid tails, which are made often of silicone, and take to the water. This trend began as a novelty, but it has increasingly become a swimming workout. Then there is joggling. It combines juggling and jogging. People continuously juggle 3 or more objects while they jog. It is believed to be a blend of mental and physical challenges, and it is even done competitively. But if these workouts seem like, well, too much work, then of course there is nappercise. This is where exercise equipment is swapped with a bed, and the only workout you do is get into a comfortable bed and sleep. But the best part? You burn calories while doing this, because people practice nappercise in a controlled studio, where the temperature is dropped to a level that promotes calorie burning. But if you think that crazy exercise trends are limited to Gen Z or social media fads, then you are wrong. Because even historically, people have come up with bizarre trends, like the portable sauna of the 1940s. It was a large cloth bag. It was placed over a person's body, while an air pump pushed heat into it. This created a sauna-like effect, and it was believed to melt fat. And quadrobics is not the first exercise trend to evoke the inner beast in people. In the 20th century, someone must have looked at a hamster wheel and thought, what if humans could do that? And voila, human hamster wheels were born. Part fitness, part fun, and maybe part, is everything okay at home? People would run inside a giant hamster wheel as it turned, hoping that it would build core strength. Whether you're walking like a wolf, napping like a sloth, or spinning like a confused rodent. Maybe there is no one right way to stay fit, but if you find this as strange as most of us, don't wear a mermaid's tail to the supermarket and try to make it to the gym, the regular kind.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. The Labubu craze arrives in Iran, although months late. And in France, pilots dressed as Muppets and monkeys take to the skies. Finally, taking you back in history, on this day in 1932, the kingdoms of Najd and Hejaz were renamed as Saudi Arabia. The royal decree was issued by King Ibn Saud, and today it's celebrated as Saudi Arabia's National Day. We are leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.
Over 6,000 tons. This year is the first Rama pilgrimage since 1925. For in that year it had a warm reception by the monarch.
Et derrière, on va avoir un décollage en longboard après. On accélère, relève un tout petit peu. Un passager tout jeune. Air alpin, très vol, air aventure. Allez, du temps. Regarde tout. Ah, c'est